Welcome to the Ballet Help Desk podcast. My name is Jenny, and I'm joined by my co-founder, Brett. We are both proud ballet moms who met backstage at our children's recital. During our kids' training, we found that resources were limited. We relied on Dance Magazine and fellow parents in the lobby for information. Now that our children are embarking on their professional careers, we're excited to share our combined 20 years of experience as ballet moms with all of you. We'll be bringing in experts to help make sense of this complex world of ballet training.
Hi, and welcome back to the Ballet Help Desk. I'm Brett, and I've got Jenny, my co-founder, here with me. We are kicking off our summer intensive boot camp. We have seen a lot of you on Facebook groups, and we've been getting emails all about summer. So buckle up. We've got a lot of content coming your way in the next several weeks, and we are kicking it off with this podcast. So you probably saw our blog post from a couple of days ago talking about what exactly a summer intensive is, but we wanted to cover that in a little bit more detail today, and then also talk about what you can expect to see at Ballet Help Desk in the coming weeks. So Jenny, why don't I turn it over to you and you can tell everyone just what exactly a summer intensive is.
A summer intensive, for those of you that do not know, which I did not when Abby was 11 and starting to think about summer intensives, I had no idea what it is. So here is kind of a layman's definition. It is full day training, usually 3 to 6 weeks, depending on the program. It usually requires an audition for which you need to pre-register. Often it is sleepaway, but not always. Most offer some sort of housing and meal plan, but some larger programs don't, like ABT New York. There are usually 3 models for the last couple of days at the end of the intensive. There's a parent observation or a small demonstration or a full show. When you're looking at these different intensives, just think about what your dancers need. And the last thing for a summer intensive, it is an excellent way to give the school a kind of a dry run or to really try on a school and see if it would fit for you for a year-round program, because a lot of invitations to year-rounds come in through the summer. Usually summer intensives are full day. Usually they include weekend dancing as well, lots of Saturday classes, and that is a summer intensive. Brett, is there anything you'd like to add?
So yeah, we should talk about the young dancer programs and the junior intensives. And my son went to a junior intensive when he was 11, and it actually had housing, but most of them are shorter and most of them don't have housing. Just if your kid's under 12, and most of these programs start when you're 12, like the full programs where you get to go away and stay in a dorm and all of that. But the young dancer programs are really great options if your child is not yet 12. They're age appropriate. They usually kind of mix fun stuff with ballet, and it feels more like kind of ballet summer camp. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Oh, I agree. And I definitely want to give a plug for the young dancer programs. Abby went to Walnut Hill for her young dancer. The thing I really liked about that program, there were a couple of things, but there was no one in the program that was over the age of 14. So it was 11 to 14-year-olds, which was really nice because then the kids were all kind of in and around a smaller age group. Like Sam had that unfortunate experience of having a much older roommate at one of his programs.
Yeah, he did at Joffrey. Parents, this is just a plug to check on the housing, because when Sam went to Joffrey when he was 11, he was in the junior program, which was 3 weeks long. And honestly, I wanted him to go to Joffrey because I had lived in Chicago and I wanted to go visit my friends. So total selfish mom move, but he liked it. But he was the only boy that age that was staying in the dorms. All the other guys were either local or their parents had rented an apartment. And there were girls his age, but no boys. So he ended up with a roommate who was 15. And I think that 15-year-old was none too pleased to have my kid in there, who was small and kind of a pain in the neck at the time. So parents,
11.
he was 11, but he was a pain. So parents, if you have a younger child going to a junior program that may run concurrently with the older kids program, just it's worth a phone call into the office to see how old your child's roommate might be.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think that that's a really good point too, talking about how there are, for all of these programs, there are sleep away options, but you as a family can go together. Like that's what we did for Abby when she was at Walnut Hill. My mom, I grew up in outside of Boston, so it was just a short drive from my mom's house to get to Walnut Hill, and by I don't know, day 3, she was kind of frustrated that I didn't put her in the dorms because she loved it so much and wanted to stay. But we really felt like we wanted to see how she would do. So we kind of dipped our toe in where she stayed with us. And then for the next intensive, the next year, she went to Houston. And back then, Houston had a 3-week program for 12-year-olds. And so she did the 3-week because we just didn't feel like she was ready to go away for whatever their program is, either 5 or 6 weeks, even though she was like, I could have stayed and I was fine. We kind of gradually moved her into doing those like really long, 5 or 6 week programs, live away from us and stay in a dorm. So we kind of, we did it slowly, which worked for her, right? So when you're thinking about these summer intensives, really think about like you as a family and what you like, what your family structure is like, and what your kid is like, if they really are independent enough to be able to go away for that long, and look at the kind of support that they offer.
Right. No, I totally agree. And every kid is different. And so just because you have like all your friends' kids are going away and staying in the dorms and your child may not be ready, or vice versa. I had a kid he's a second kid. He's super independent. He would have stayed in the dorms when he was 8 if we would have let him, but we didn't. We let him do that when he was 11, and it was kind of a good dip your toe in the water and a good lesson to check on who your roommate might, or who your kid's roommate might be beforehand. Let's talk about thinking strategically about summer intensives. This is something that
Absolutely.
I really didn't know when Sam was younger. And that is, when you're thinking about going away, and if your dancer has said, I think I want to pursue this seriously, and I think I want to dance professionally at some point, you don't really know when they're 12 if that's really going to come true, but you need to think about if that is the goal, you need to map out your summer intensives. And the reason I say that is because you really have 5 or 6 years to go to summer programs. And
Right.
that's it. Like if they start at 12 and they're going into a bridge program when they're 18, you're talking about 5 or 6 summers max, maybe 7 if you're lucky. And that means 6 to 10 programs total if you are stacking more than one in a summer. And what I mean by stacking is going to, one 5-week program and one 2-week program, or 2 3-week programs. It's a great way to check out a lot of different schools if you think it's ultimately somewhere you might want to attend year round, or even check it out to see if it's a company you might be interested in auditioning for when you're older. But you really need to think about what your dancer needs at a certain age and then map it out. And I know it sounds crazy. Like you're probably thinking like, really, I'm going to map out 6 years of summer programs. But it's actually something I wish we would have done when Sam was a little bit younger, because we just kind of went. I mean, the first one we went because we saw an ad in Dance Magazine. And then after that, we kind of guessed until he was maybe 15. And so it is important to think strategically. Jenny, do you want to talk a little bit more about that, like how you see that mapping out?
Yeah, I do think that not stressing parents out is 100% true. I think what we mean by think strategically is look at summer as a way to do a couple of things. One, I will maintain forever that I think one of the greatest things that happens in ballet is that every year the slate gets wiped clean and the entire pre-pro community re-auditions for summer. The chips fall where they may, and you kind of get to see where you fall. If you audition like college, couple reaches, couple 50-50s, and a couple of safeties. And strategically, the reason you want to do that, from my perspective, and Brett, please chime in if you feel differently or want to elaborate is it allows you to kind of see where you fall in the ballet hierarchy because all the programs, there is a competitive nature to these programs, and there are certain programs that are a lot more competitive. And as Fran said in kind of our last podcast, those are indicators that you are on the right track in terms of moving towards the potential for having a professional career. The other thing you want to think about strategically is think about like the first few summers that your kid went to. And Abby just looks at it as it was just fun, right? She had such a good time. Even though they were excellent programs, she was getting excellent training. She danced her butt off, but she really looked forward to summers because she had such a good time. So part of the strategic planning in there is thinking about the environment that your dancer is going to be in and can have a nice balance of both fun and a lot of dancing. What do you think, Brett?
Yeah, especially as they're younger, and in a minute, we'll talk about kind of what you should be looking for when your dancer's younger and then when your dancer's older. And we're going to talk about that in this boot camp quite a bit in a couple weeks. So one other thing that I think I wish I had done is writing down a ballet summer intensive wish list. And what I mean by that is, what are all the programs that your dancer thinks they might want to go to? Now, if you would have asked Sam when he was 12 where he wanted to go versus what his list would be when he was 16, I think it changed. But
Sure.
One of the things that I think would have been really helpful was had we said, okay, there are 10 schools or summer programs that he wants to look at. And what are they? And when is it most appropriate? For example,
but where would Sam have gotten that list? Like if he was thinking, how would you help him build that list?
Right. So, well, there are a lot of resources out there now that we didn't have. One is there's a website called Ballet Scout, and Ballet Scout lists all of the programs that are out there and the audition times, and also what style or technique the program offers. So I did a lot of my research in two ways. Number one, I chatted up every parent of an older dancer I could find. And I do have a funny story about that. Sam went to Houston when he was 13. And the only reason he went to Houston was because I was sitting next to another parent in the lobby of his first ballet studio. And she heard me talking to the director about where he should go. And she's like, oh, well, all the boys go to Houston. I mean, that's where Sam should go because that's where all the boys go. And I was like, I didn't know Houston had a ballet company, much less a school. And she said, oh, yeah, you got to go there. So we signed Sam up for the audition. He went, he auditioned, he got in, and off he went to Houston. So thank you, Angie Cortaglu, for recommending that Sam go to Houston because that was great.
Right. I mean, because I've heard of some parents who like know about certain teachers where they want their kid to go train with these people. I mean, I was not that dance mom. I didn't know any of that stuff. I mean, and I that might be the difference between like you and I who are athletes and not dancers. And so we don't have that kind of history of knowing like, oh, these like iconic teachers teach at X, Y, or Z schools. So you plan for your kid to go there. I was not that person. I really, the first intensives Abby applied to were ones that A, took 11-year-olds, but B, that I had heard of.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, I think that there's a risk in that because the iconic teacher that might teach there might not be the iconic teacher that's teaching there when you arrive in July, because teachers move around all the time and there's guest teachers. And, I think that, with every resource available to parents now, take advantage of the Facebook groups that are out there that are focused on ballet. There is a wealth of information out there. Read our reviews. We have over 750 reviews of, I think, about 160 different ballet programs around the world. And people were super honest with our reviews. So Check them out. They're at ballethelpdesk.com. And I would have poured through those when Sam was younger.
But so at the age of like 14, I think that we kind of made a switch. I mean, granted, there was also the COVID years, right? So there was kind of that in there. But I really think that you're right. We changed kind of the strategy and started thinking about fun versus, and seeing where you fall in the ballet hierarchy. And then by the age of like 14, we were really starting to think about, okay, Abby, where are some companies that you might want to dance for? What are some of those experiences that you might want to have? And she started auditioning for those summer programs as well.
No, Sam did the same thing, but I think the master list that we made, even, we made it later than we probably should have, but that I think is a good way to kind of knock off those programs. The other thing we were doing with that master list is we used it as kind of a gauge for where he fit in, right? So
Yeah.
here's the list of summer programs. He had his list that he was going to audition for every summer. And that gives you a good sense of kind of where you fit in the ballet hierarchy. And for parents of boys, we're going to talk about this in more detail in the coming weeks, but the pool of where boys can go is much more limited because you absolutely want your son going to a program that has a critical mass of boys. And so your list may not look the same as Jenny's daughter's list, for example, because it's a different look for boys.
Right, 100%. But also, I think that it is important for people to think about that next level of training. Using summer to really, when you get into that 14, 15, 16, because those bridge years are coming, starting to use the summers as almost auditions for that year-round training. Do you like the teachers? Do you like the way that the communication happens? Do you like the setup of and the infrastructure of that school and that institution? So don't discount that. So really work with your kids to create that list of maybe companies that they possibly want to dance for, and then use those summers to really help them eliminate or add companies to their list. And do a wide scatter, because you do just never know. And now that they have these like smaller company experiences.
And there's also these choreographic workshops.
Mhm.
So like there's a lot of variety that's coming out that is more specialized than just your standard 4 or 5 week program. Let's also I want to talk about younger and older, if it's okay. One of the questions, Jenny, that we've gotten a lot is, my 12-year-old isn't ready to go away, right? Is it okay if he or she doesn't go to a summer intensive? Are they going to be behind?
I know there's this huge ballet arms race that, oh my gosh, Susie has already gone to 4 summer intensives and she's only 11. And oh my gosh, my kid is going to be so far behind everyone else because they have, we're not ready for her to go away, or she's not ready to go away, or we have a big family reunion coming up and we can't afford it. From everyone that we have spoken to, I think you really have to think about going when you're ready.
I don't think it matters at 12. I always I looked at 12 and 13. So when Sam was 12, he went to ABT in Orange County and San Francisco because it was in our backyard. And when he was 13, he went to Houston because Angie told me to send Sam to Houston. But I looked at ABT in San Francisco, even though it was great training, they were both in California, they were easy, they fit with our family's schedule. And it was like ballet summer camp, right? Like Sam got to do some of the things, like we let him take Bart up to the city and we let him practice being a little more independent. And so he had housing with ABT, but with San Francisco, he commuted, which he didn't love because he would have rather been up there. But he got to learn some skills that had nothing to do with ballet. And I think
Totally. I think that's actually a huge important point, and that's something that I think parents should not discount. If you send your kid too early and they are not ready, and then they spend 3, 4, 5 weeks holed up in their bedroom, calling you or playing on their Switch and not being social, not building their ballet network and making friends, not getting out there, and they're kind of going through the motions of going to class, then, is that really worth it to send them early when maybe they're not ready? Personally, I would say no.
I totally agree. And we have both heard stories of kids who are so homesick that they did just lock themselves in their dorm room and they were miserable. And we've also both seen kids who have gone home early.
Yeah.
And I would much rather have a dancer go when they're ready, because if you go when you're not ready, you don't have any fun. And what is the point of all of summer programs if you don't have a good time? I mean, my son loved summer programs, and a lot of it was the ballet, but a lot of it was not about the ballet. It was about hanging out in people's dorms rooms and going to the water park on Sundays and just all the stuff that goes along with a really well-run summer intensive.
Yep.
So what about when kids get to be about 14? I feel like at that point, they need to be thinking about summer kind of in maybe 4 different ways. Can I just go through those and see what you think?
Sure.
Okay. So I think when you're about 14, you want to start getting on the radar of schools, right? Like if you are going to school locally and you're not at a company affiliated program or a conservatory, at about 14, that's when you want to kind of test run some of these places. And that's what we mean about getting on the school's radar, but also getting the school on your radar. So you might go when you're 14 and not be interested in going there year round until you're 16 or 17, but at least you've kind of gotten a feel for it. The second thing is figuring out where you fit in the ballet world, right? There are so many summer programs out there. There is a place for everybody, but where you're getting in is a good indicator of where you might fit in the ballet world. Are you getting into the top programs? Are you getting into some of the more, the smaller, less well-regarded programs? It just gives you a sense of where you fit. And whether you like it or not, this is a competitive landscape.
Right. And something I think that you should not discount, regardless of the culture of that school, you still do want, from our opinion, to at least audition for those places, because at that point you really do kind of want to see where you do fit.
Jenny, you had told me one point that your way of looking at things with Abby was that you would set it up kind of like college applications. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I looked at it like college in terms of a couple of reaches, a couple of 50-50s, and a couple of safeties, because these are highly competitive. They get thousands of applications, right? And they take, I don't know, per level, 20 to 50 kids. You really do want to see where you fall in the ballet hierarchy, because then that will give you an idea of if you're on the right track in terms of your training and in terms of where you are if you really run at this as being a professional career.
Right.
No, because I agree with you. This is a highly competitive environment where, as Fran said, only, it's a really steep pyramid and only the exceptional make it to the professional career. But that does not mean your summer intensive training is wasted if you don't want to make it as your professional career. You can still build skills and you can change your mind. Goals change all the time, but still see where you fall in that ballet hierarchy if you are thinking that you really do want to make a run at this.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because there are indicators all the way along the path that will tell you what the likelihood is that your dancer will have some success. And one of those indicators is getting into top summer programs.
Right.
The other thing I think that's really important is, and we've talked about this in some blog posts, and I think we've talked about this in some of our other podcasts, is networking. I can't emphasize enough the value of building your network when you're young. And just as an example, so Sam's in the second company of Houston Ballet, and one of his friends who is in Houston Ballet as well, they were at a summer program together when they were 11 and have stayed in touch. And when Sam walked into the first day at HB2, this kid was like, I can't believe this, right? Like, I can't believe I was with you when I was 11 and now you're here again. And what you're going to hear from your kids, especially as they get older, is, oh, I remember her from when I was at a summer program with her when I was 13. And that is a small, small world. And you can't start too early on building that network, because those are the people that are going to be your colleagues when your dancers eventually start working. And with Peter Merz, I remember one thing that really stood out is he said, the most successful dancers are those that have a really big professional network. And, I think it's like anything, like any job, right? Having a network is a heck of a lot easier, and it's easier to maneuver through an industry when you have that big network versus when everything is kind of cold and you're going in blind.
When Abby went back to Royal Danish this past summer, a week before the program, like everyone jumped back on their thread that had kind of dropped from last summer and picked up and was like, hey, who's going to be there? Who's coming? Who's going where? And night one, they were already all getting together. And, that's just because they all keep up with each other on social media, and they're continuing to build their friend network. And that's how you're going to get work. That's how you're going to find out about gigs. That's how you are maybe going to find your dream company, because you've got a friend that's there already and they're saying like, hey, this might be a good fit for you.
I totally. Well, and also, parents, don't forget about the parent network. Like, I think I've written about this a lot and talked about it, but Sam wouldn't be in Houston had it not been for Jenny, because I was telling her that Sam needed to make a change. We were hiking one day and she's like, well, there's an audition in Houston on Saturday. Now, granted, this was Thursday. So we scrambled and got Sam down there. But had it not been for my parent network, Sam would have never auditioned. And then there were a number of parents I called once he had gotten the green light to find out about what Houston Ballet Academy was like, and was it somewhere he would be a good fit. So had it not been for those parents, for me calling 3 different parents whose boys had gone through Houston, 2 of whom are now in the company, he would have never been there. So parents, the networking for you is as important as the networking with your kids.
Well, and 100%, but also the fact that they told Sam he could come to that last minute audition was a huge testament to the fact that he had been there for 2 years, for 2 summers, and he had built a relationship with them already. And so they knew who was going to be walking through the door.
You're right. That's a really good point. And again, that is a reason for kids to, when they get to their summer programs, to build relationships, not only with the dancers, but Jenny raises a good point, with the teachers and with the administration. And just as an aside, toe the line too, dancers, toe the line when you get there. Sometimes the places may be really strict. Sam's been to a couple programs where the rules were really strict, but you don't want your dancer being the one remembered for almost getting kicked out of the program. I can experience.
Okay, so Brett, why don't you give people a little bit of an idea of what might be coming in our summer intensive boot camp?
Okay. Let me preface this by saying we had no idea what we were doing when our kids were younger. So we're trying to put everything in one place so you guys don't have to deal with what we had to deal with. So we're going to have some tools first. We are going to give you tools to research and also how to figure out auditions. One thing that Jenny and I both did is we built a spreadsheet to keep track of everything. So we have the mother of all spreadsheets that will be available to you on our website. And you can go and download it. And it has every column you could ever ask for. It also has brief instructions for what should go in each row. So, name of program, what are the dates, what are the audition dates, things like, are you going to need to travel? Are you going to do the in-person audition? Or are you going to do a video audition? So that's one.
Yeah. And spots for what to wear to the audition, because every audition has slightly different dress code. And so you want to make sure you have all of those things ready to go, because audition season is crazy and they do jumble a little bit where you might forget what's what. So the spreadsheet for both of us was a really great tool to keep every audition straight, what we needed and what we needed to grab every day in order to help them be as successful as possible and as low stress for everyone.
Exactly. The next thing we will have, and we're not going to talk about it in great detail right now because we don't want to keep you too long, but scheduling strategies. So how many auditions should you schedule? When should you do them? How does the notification process work? All of that. We're going to have a lot of information about how to do that. We're also going to have information about what scholarships mean and how you should interpret scholarships, both for boys and for girls. Then what else are we going to have? We are going to have a guest on one of our podcast episodes who is a professional photographer. And she has also provided tips and tricks on how to shoot your audition photos, and then also tips and tricks for shooting an audition video if that's something you're submitting.
Yeah, it's a great episode with so much terrific information. I wish I had had all of it because let me just say that Abby's first headshots and first Arabesque shots were literally filmed in a studio where I hung like a wrinkled sheet and tried to take pictures with my camera. It was a disaster. It I wish I had had these tips and tricks because it would have saved me a whole lot of heartache.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. We took Sam's first ones when he was 10 in our backyard. We thought it would be really nice to have a backdrop of a vine and the fence, and
Yep.
told us go in a studio where the lighting's good. So I'm sure whoever saw his first shots laughed at us. Okay, so do we also want to talk about the podcast episodes we have coming up as part of this?
I think we should. So we are very, very excited that we have Robert Fulton, who is the co-founder of Ballet Scout. I know a lot of you have been seeing his name or Ballet Scout pop up on a lot of the social media, and they have created an incredible tool. Abby used it last year during her audition season. It was invaluable. And he is going to talk about how to best research auditions, and he'll offer some great tips and tricks for nailing auditions. It was a terrific episode. He is a delightful guy. We really enjoyed getting to know him, and we're really excited for you guys to hear that episode. Like we said before, we have Emily Brunner, and she is a professional dance photographer, and all of her tips and tricks are going to be wonderful. She has provided a guide for us for our website, and then she elaborated on all of them for the pod, and she was a great guest and really had some terrific insight about how to shoot your dance pictures. And side note, she does not always say you need a professional photographer. Be sure to tune in for that. And then Brett, why don't you talk about this one? Because we're pretty excited about this, and this is something we have not done before. So everyone has to be kind. We've never done a roundtable before. So you want to tell everyone about this?
Sure. So we're doing a roundtable of parents of boys. And so we actually have a week in our boot camp that is dedicated entirely to boys in ballet. And so we are going to have 4 or 5 parents of boys who have already been down this path and are now on the cusp of either going into bridge programs or on the cusp of going into professional careers. So make sure you tune into this to hear what a combined 40 years of raising a ballet boy sounds like.
Girl moms, do not miss this episode, because if you have a girl in ballet, boys are so important, and girls really need to be not only an ally and an advocate for the boys in ballet, but also you need them for PA. You need to build these relationships. And
so one thing to consider when you're looking at reviews on Ballet Help Desk is there is a section that asks if there's a dedicated boys program and how many boys attended. And for boys, I think it's really important. You want to be at a program with boys, but like Jenny said, girls, you want the boys there too, because
absolutely.
Especially once you get into being a teenager, because if there's no boys, there is no partnering. And so parents, as you're reading these reviews, or as your dancer is reading these reviews, pay attention to which schools get the boys, because I can guarantee you that your partnering experience will be a lot better if you have boys the same age and the same size versus having to partner with one teacher. I can't emphasize that enough.
Correct. You go where the boys are, girls, because it really does make a huge difference in your summer intensive experience. Speaking of that, we spoke to 2 different adjudicators for summer intensive auditions. So we spoke to Kelly Meyernick, and she is principal and rehearsal director at the Houston Ballet Academy, and Lauren Fadley-Vayette, and she's a principal at Kansas City Ballet School. And we talked to them about everything they love to see in auditions. We asked them about some things that they don't recommend, some things they do recommend. And be sure to check out those episodes, because there's some real gems in there and pearls for everybody to take with them. And if I had known even half of this information, I think Abby would have been a whole lot better prepared, or I don't know, maybe ignorance is bliss, but she just kind of skipped in. And
one other thing that they talked about, and Our kids didn't do this. I think our kids submitted maybe 1 or 2 video auditions, but I think that was it. And I think they were old enough that they could shoot them themselves.
Yep.
But we don't pretend to have a clue about how video auditions work, mostly because our kids just only did a few and they were older. But we did ask them about the benefits of doing them and how much of a video an adjudicator actually watches. But definitely tune in because they have some great suggestions for how to stand out in an audition and then also kind of the pitfalls to avoid.
Absolutely. They were both really interesting interviews, and there's a lot of great information in there for people to take with them. We were very lucky to get 2 such esteemed women to come and speak with us, which was exciting. At the end of our boot camp, we're going to have a little bit of fun. In addition to doing a recap of all the summer intensive reviews that you guys have submitted, and we cannot believe that we have over 750 reviews. So thank you so much to 160 programs that you guys all reviewed. It's amazing. Go and check it out. It's such a great resource. And so we have so much data. So we were playing with what we wanted to do with that. And so what we decided to do is to do our first annual, we're going to do Ballet Help Desk Intensive Awards. So there's no data science involved in these awards, but we'll have some fun categories and things like, top 10 best comments, the school with bed bugs, the school with the best housing, school with the terrible food. We already know who won worst food. I mean, come on. I think everyone knows already, but we should have some fun and, let us know if there's a category you guys would like, and maybe we'll include it. And so stay tuned for that. And that should be really fun.
Yeah. And keep the questions coming. I can't believe how many questions you guys have emailed us and put up on our Facebook page. So thank you for that. We're trying to incorporate all of the questions you did send into upcoming episodes, especially the ones with Kelly and with Lauren, the people who come and adjudicate summer intensive auditions. So stay tuned for everything. We've got a lot planned and we are looking forward to having you join us.
Yeah, we're super excited. And as you keep questions coming, remember, we did the Fran podcast about potential and facility and all of that because we got so many questions from you guys as our listeners. We decided to do an entire episode of that. So keep the questions coming because that will help us build content that you really want.
Yeah, totally agree. So buckle up. It's going to be fun for the next couple weeks.
That's right. Let's get ready for summer.
Have a great day.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
If you liked what you heard on this episode, please take a moment and help us spread the word. Follow us and leave us a review on your preferred podcast platform. Tell a friend and share on your social media. Also, now that your dancer has returned from their summer intensives, please head over to ballethelpdesk.com and leave an anonymous review of the program. Help your fellow dance parents by letting them learn all about the good, the bad, and everything in between. To stay in the loop on all of our latest content, subscribe to our newsletter at ballethelpdesk.com and follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Until next time, have a great day.